Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to today's session. It has got delayed because of some technical problems in Varanasi center. So I'll be controlling anyhow. There is no difference because I am also Vikram Singh. I welcome today's keynote speaker, Major General Sarbjit Singh Pawar, Vishisht Seva Medal. This topic of presentation today will be communication and transactional analysis. I request all the participants to kindly switch off their mics for the time being. Thank you. So let me introduce today's speaker. Major General Sarbjit Singh Pawar has done his Masters in Defence Studies from Madras University. He has done his Masters of Management Studies from Osmania University, Senior International Defense Management course from California, USA. Major General Pawar was the Vice Chancellor of Lakshmi National University of Physical Education, Gwalior from 2010 to 2012. He has been awarded Vishisht Seva Medal by the President of India on the Republic Day 2010. Presently, he is the member of the Academic and Activity Council of the Maharaja Bhander Singh Punjab Sports University, Patiala. He has been conferred with medal award for outstanding contribution to education by National Business School Awards 2012. He is the member of the Working Steering Committee of Sports Ministry of India for 12th five-year plan. He was also the chairman and committee for talent search and training of national sports persons. Major General Pawar has a wonderful experience of over 38 years. Two of his daughters are settled in California. One elder daughter is working with Google in Silicon Valley, California, and the younger daughter is a chief medical officer in California. His wife is a homemaker. Professor Pawar has traveled more than 20 countries during his tenure. He has had the foreign assignment in the military school Bhutan, where he's worked as commandant and team leader, Indian Army training team. He also worked in Botswana, Africa, conducting training of the entire Botswana defense force. He has played and excelled in hockey, basketball, riding, shooting, and golf. His area of specializations are human resource management, human behavioral sciences, intrapersonal relations, and leadership. He is also specialized in defense and strategic analysis. We welcome you, sir, on this today's presentation. I, on behalf of moderator Professor V.K. Dabas and Dr. Vikram Singh, Organizing Secretary, and Dr. Anima Reddy, Joint Organizing Secretary, also welcome all participants, and I'm sure that you will be benefited by today's presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vikram. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And thank you for the introduction that you have given. The picture that you would have seen on the advertisement would be quite different to the one that I present in my profile right now. I think you all understand the terminologies of lockdown and unlock. So I would say I am into unlock 2.0 now, in that mode, because unlock 1.0 was when I hung my uniform and was starting to work with the Government of India in civil dress. And now that I've shifted to Punjab and I've got this beard on, so this I consider as unlock 2.0. So that is just to tell you all that my looks are quite different to what I was, and some of you may not be, those who saw me earlier would be thinking that who's this gentleman who's sitting out here. Uh, so the next 40 to 45 minutes, we will discuss a very important subject. The subject has already been given to you. It's there on the view file as well. Communication and transactional analysis. Basically, to understand how does an interaction take place, how is it received by the other person, and how should it be received. This has assumed greater importance during this coronavirus and the lockdown periods because people are under tremendous stress and talking on phone and on social media, on the net, pardon me my saying, has taught a lot of us how to disrespect others and disrespect others without being punched in your face. If you would remember earlier, when there was no net and we had to talk to people on face to face, we did not have the guts be disrespectful without the fear of retribution. So, therefore, communication has become even more important in today's times. And only a few days ago, you all were talking about, I believe, on this subject of stress management. And on the same day, Sushant Singh Rajput also unfortunately committed suicide. And there are so many such people across the country and the world who do so based on mental stresses. Just to give you statistics, in 2016, in India alone, there were 230,000 suicide cases. I mean, these are the ones which have been reported. There would be a large percentage of unreported cases. And in 2017, I've taken this stats from the net only. In 2017, there are 22 crore people in India with mental disorders. 22 crore would mean almost one in every seven person has mental problems. And communication plays a very major role in making sure that the mental stresses are taken care of, and the way that you speak to others, the way you interact with others will make a lot of difference on the psyche of the recipient. Uh, this discussion that we're going to have today will also have a very important bearing on your day-to-day functioning in your homes, at your workplaces, in the social media. Sometimes you all must be wondering as to why so and so acted or spoke or behaved with you in a particular manner which is quite different and weird. And I hope at the end of the today's talk, you would be able to place and see as to where that came from. So let's go ahead and start with the main subject. Why is it? Is my slide not moving?
So you can use the keyboard, sir.
Okay. Okay. So the basically the aim today would be to understand different kinds of communication transactions and their effect on performance or response of individuals and organization. Basically, today's talk, I will have more emphasis on the individuals part, and organizations we can take it on some other time. Now, what is communication? I'll give you very simple definitions. There are a wide number of definitions for communication. One that's I thought was very simple is it is a process by which an idea is transferred from one source to the other, or a source to a receiver, with the intention of changing his actions or behavior. We will discuss it a little later. And the other one is that it's a mutual exchange of facts, thoughts, or perceptions leading to common understanding of all parties. It really does not mean that both the parties or all the parties are in agreement, but they at least understand what is being said. So, the first definition of this is for individual communication, and the second part is more for an organizational communication. There's yet one more, and that is the reasoning, analysis, or debate within one's own mind. Now, this is intrapersonal communication, which happens within your own brain, within your own self, within your mind and your heart, or whatever that you call, it happens within yourself. And some people do little loud thinking, but that is actually intrapersonal communication. But we will not be touching on this part. No, I said it's a transfer of an idea. Now, this is a very, very simplistic way of putting up a communication. In communication, it has a number of other characteristics, like the role which is played by the recipient and his perception. Now, the example that I will give you in this is that if two people go to a market together without them being told what is the purpose, and when you come back, you ask them, each of them separately, as to what did they see. Each one would have a different story. One guy would say, I saw there was so many good shops for shoes. The other guy would say that I saw some eating places very nice. So it is the perception of the recipient which plays a very big role in the communication. Communication is also expectations. You are expecting something out of that communication, and everyone expects, expectations are quite different. And in communication, the perception of everyone is what they expect. Somebody might be expecting differently from the other. Like today, you all have come here. The expectations of everyone about today's lecture would have been, you've had some expectations, and it would be different with every person who's sitting out here or who's attending online here. And communication also makes demands. By demands, it is said that the issues which are, or the words which are with pleasant disposition, are retained much easier than the ones which are done with anger or harsh words. Those generally you try to suppress. If you recollect of your past, or you say in your childhood, the more things that you will remember were good things and fun things than those things where you did not like them. So your mind generally suppresses the bad. This is very simple types of communication. Firstly, they are either vocal or non-vocal, and they can be verbal or non-verbal. So these are spoken words, which are vocal and verbal. Verbal and non-verbal could be written words. Non-verbal and vocal could be scream, grunt, shouting, whatever. And non-vocal and non-verbal would be body language, the expression that you have, facial expression, etc., etc. And the list this is just to explain, this is not exhaustive. So you can add your own things into this communication. Now, before we get on to the dissecting the communication, just a few issues that I would like to highlight about the barriers in good communication, and also what are the good points that you should keep into mind to have good communication. Now, when a message is initiated from one person to the other, the sender and the receiver, they are two different personalities. And each personality has different way of looking at that particular message. And those two people have different perceptions. Now, what is a perception? Perceptions in interpersonal communication basically deals with two types of perception. One is the self concept or the perception of your own self. And second is the perception of other people, person's perception, what you call. Now, if you look into the self concept or your awareness about your own self, this also varies a lot. You will notice that there are a number of people who think very much about themselves, but actually you think that they are not good enough. But those people have very high ideas about themselves. You have come across a number of them. It is self-concept is what you view yourself to be without, and some people only see the good points in themselves and don't weigh against their drawbacks. And therefore, this tends to be subjective. And the self-concept also changes with new experiences that you come across. I'll give you a very good example, and this is also part of the social self. In self concept, there are three types of self. One is the social self, one is the material self, and one is the spiritual self. So, when you talk about the social self, the example that I was going to give you in the self awareness is that they tried out an experiment on a girl who was little flat faced and nothing very much to look at. And they started telling her, this girl, that you are very good looking and you're extremely beautiful. And over a period of time, they noticed that that girl actually started to look good, started to look beautiful. So this is the experiment which we all need to do with ourselves. That if we have a good self concept of ourselves, we can improve ourselves. And the second is the perception of the others, which is the person's perception. And this also has a lot of distortions, errors in our judgment. And we tend to, take one issue and stereotype that person with that particular perception. For example, if somebody is a little miser, we start to hate that fellow. I mean, some of us start to hate that fellow not only for him being a miser, but also in all other fields. We think that this person is. Now, let's get back here. We talked about perception, we talked about the personalities, and third thing we talk about is the credibility. The receiver also evaluates the credibility of the sender. Example that I'd like to give you in this is that if if a pahalwan or a wrestler tells you tomorrow that the coronavirus can be cured with a medicine which is has been produced by USA and it's a sure shot. This thing, you would doubt his testimony. But if that comes from a doctor, you would find it much more credible than it coming from somebody else. The next is that words have different meanings. The example that comes to me straight away, there's so many words, but the word like hot, hot only meant it had only one meaning. That that chai is hot or chai is garam, and the temperature is very hot. But I'm sure these days girls and boys use this word hot in very different ways. So every word, not every word, but a lot of words have got different meaning. So it is up to the receiver, the what he assigns meaning to that particular word sent in that communication. The next one is that receiver hears what he wants to hear. And sometimes you don't want to hear a no, and you tend to hear yes in that particular thing. So that changes the context of the entire. Then there are a lot of codes and noises. Noises means distractions when the message is being passed. There's music going on, there's some other talk, somebody's listening there. So the message doesn't get passed. And there is a very famous game which some of you must have played in this, that where you line up 15, 20 people, you give a एक के कान में आप मैसेज देते हो और वो आगे दूसरे के कान में पास करते हैं और जब तक वो एंड में पहुंचता है the message which was started has changed into a very different message. So that is a good way of testing how the communication from one place to the other reaches with so many other filters coming in. Now, good communication, it's all of them are very simple, and I don't have to explain that must use simple language. You should tailor the message so that it can fit into the perception of the receiver. And if you repeat a message, it does help. You repeat a number of times, it does help. And especially so in the army, we do this very religiously to make sure that the orders which are given are have been received correctly. Uh, you have to reinforce your words with actions for credibility and use multiple channels like your body language, and it makes a lot of a comprehensive message goes out when you use multiple channels. And also be open to feedback. It could well be formal or informal. Bad listening habits, judging the message or the nature of the message from the appearance of the sender. Now, a lot of time you see somebody standing on the lecture stand, and the moment he comes and you already made up your mind that whether this fellow will be able to do justice to the subject that he will talk about or not. So you judge him from his appearance, the way he conducts himself, etc., which may not be the right thing to do. They are very unassuming people who can really give you some real pearls of wisdom without being looking too good. And there are some people who listen for facts rather than ideas and should not interrupt the speaker often. That breaks the thought process of the speaker. And there are a lot of times that we pay attention, we pose that we are paying attention to, but we actually are not. And we get distracted by sights, students sitting next to the window, you remember in schools, always looking outside by various sounds and sights, and we miss out on important things in the class. And when you know that something is going to take very long, you avoid hearing that. So therefore, in the army, we say that give them more than 5 points. 5 points is what maximum come on your fingertips. So if it is longer, it loses, people lose their interest in it. Now, I will, these days we've been hearing something called the hypocrisy a lot on the news channels. Now, what is a hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is that you have a different inward feeling, but outwardly your communication is quite different. And normally we hear this a number of times where you say that he preaches different to what he practices. He teaches different to what he practices. So you have, so hypocrisy is that part. And a lot of time we don't know a lot of things about ourselves, and therefore the communication becomes blocked. I will now talk to you about a Johari window, which is also called the awareness model. I'm sure some of you have already heard about it and seen and known about this. Uh, Johari's window is basically here known to self and certain issues unknown to self. And this side is known to others and unknowns to others. So this side is the others, and here is the self. Now, an area which is known to you and is known to others is called arena. We'll talk about it little as we go further. The area which is known to you but unknown to others is called a facade in this model. The area which is unknown to yourself and is unknown to others is totally called unknown. And the area which is unknown to yourself and known to others called the blind spot. Now we will take each one of them. First, I'll take as the arena. Now, arena where you know those issues yourself and everyone else knows is a free area of activity. Now, like, let us say that people know that I'm a good basketball player, and I obviously know that I'm a good basketball. So, whenever there's any talk about basketball, people will freely talk with me on that. So, this is an area where the communication is absolutely free, and you share mutually between yourself and others all the information about that particular subject. And therefore, the communication is absolutely facilitated. And larger this area, there'll be more open talks and deeper relationship between two people who know or who are operating. Now, blind spot is something which I don't know, but others know. It is that side of myself which I fail to sometimes see. Kind of mannerism or preferences, like हम लोग बोलते हैं कि तकिया कलाम, उसका तकिया कलाम है कि वो every time he will use a word like, or he'll use some words, or he will use some facial expressions which I may not be knowing, but other people around me would know about it. So therefore, if I don't know that those guys know certain things about me and they react in a different way, I fail to understand why they do, because certain people might just be laughing or smiling at me, and I would be suspicious as to why are they laughing or smiling. But they probably may be laughing at my mannerism. And free flow of communication here is not there. It gets restricted. Facade, of course, is where you are in an advantageous position. You know certain thing, but the other people don't know, and you try to keep those things as a secret from the others. Like certain people are corrupt, they take bribes, but they don't want other people to know. So in such cases, he becomes defensive. He doesn't want you to come beyond a point in those issues nearer you. And therefore, he will put a facade, he'll put a wall in front of you, and there will be no communication here. And the last one is the unknown, which is the untapped source of your creative and hidden abilities, which nobody knows, but we will see how all these can be taken care of. Now, the best area that we discussed was the arena. And this model, what we just discussed, is not something which is static. It is a dynamic model. You can enlarge your arena by exposing yourself to others. And you can enlarge your arena by taking feedback from the others about yourself. And once you do that, you will reduce the facade and you will reduce the blind spot and make it into a bigger arena. And once you start to interact with all of them, start exploiting you will be free to communicate. You will start exploiting yourself. You will find more and more things about yourself. And even that uh, the blind spot will totally get that will become smaller. And the correction, the unknown one will also become smaller. Now, this is how you get a feedback and you get you expose yourself more. You will be able to make your arena much bigger and blind spot and facade, and also to an extent unknown smaller in this. Now, this was as far as the first part of explaining what communication is. Now, I will get to the transactional analysis of the communication. Now, what is a transactional analysis? This is little technical definition of transactional analysis, but basically you analyze the transactions. What is a transaction? Transaction is any communication, any idea that you throw out is a transaction. It is this, that when a transaction takes place, what ego state you were or somebody was when that transaction took place. We will talk about the ego states a little while from now. And then you are taught how to change your ego states so as to be able to resolve or solve your emotional problems. So each person, whether he is 8 years old or 80 years old or 100 years old, has three different constitutes of something called the ego states. Some of you may have already heard this, But we'll go into details today about this. So the first one is called the parent ego state. This is also called as the taught self. You're self-taught. The second is the adult ego state, which is comes to you after thinking about it. It's a thought self. And the third is a child ego state. It is what you feel. It's a felt self. So it is not necessary that child will have a child ego state, the adult will have only a adult ego state, and parents will only have a parent. Every person living has all the three ego states. It will vary in the quantities, or it will vary in the number of transactions that you have in each of these states. But every living person has these states in them. And what is an ego state? It's a pattern of feeling and experience which is directly related to the consistent pattern of behavior. How we behave consistently is what your ego state is. And how is this built up? It is built up on the sum total of various experiences right from your childhood till the time you go into your grave. These ego states continue to be built. Now, what is a parent ego? The parent ego state are the messages which we receive from our parents, teachers, uncles, and all the elders. And they include the guidance, advice like don't do this is bad, this must never be done. And this generally comes about two different dominant roles. But basically, parent ego is one ego state, which can either be as a nurturing parent. Nurturing means very sympathetic, very uh, protective, and supporting. He supports, he's very caring. And the critical or the punitive parent is the one who's always irritating, lecturing, he's judgmental. तुमने ये क्यों किया, ऐसे करना था, ऐसे क्यों नहीं किया. He's all the time criticizing. But they're part of the same family. It is not that somebody who's critical is all the time critical. He could also be a nurturing parent. But it depends which of the two is the more dominant one in particular. And this, all the young fathers and mothers who are listening to me today, all the young parents who are listening to me must keep this in mind that the
Sir, kindly switch off one device, sir. Sorry. Kindly switch off one device. I think two devices are on. That is why it is echoing.
Self-awareness, no thyself, is simply called as self-consciousness. Monitoring our stress.
There is some echo coming from somewhere. Anyway, no, it's okay. So the relationship between the father and mother has an overbearing effect on this parent ego state. So what you do, how you behave as parents makes a lot of difference in this ego state, which is built up in a child. The next one I'm going to discuss is the child ego state. Don't go into the big slide and confuse. But child it's the internal emotions and feeling of a child. It's like nail biting, laughing, गुस्सा होना, एकदम नाराज होकर लेट जाना. So this is all part of the child ego state. And there are different types, three different types that they feel, but they're all, basically, uh, a child is very affectionate. It is, he doesn't care about the other's feeling. And sometimes he would throw files. He's very curious. He wants to question. So all this either could be natural child, let's call the natural child, and somebody who's a little professor is the one who doesn't toe the line. But all our professors do toe the line. All our professors, most of you. But little professor is the guy who doesn't toe the line, and but he has a skill to survive in this Gora world. वो कहते हैं ना कि उसको दुनियादारी आती है, तो कई कई बच्चे होते हैं उनको भी दुनियादारी आती होती है. So those are the guys we can call them as little professors. And the adapted child is the one who has been under a very critical parent, and where rewards and punishment, तुम करेगा तो तुमको ये मिलेगा, नहीं करेगा तो तुम्हारे को डंडे पड़ेंगे. That kind of a thing. He learns how to be manipulated. He learns how to do things to please others. And that is how he survives in this world. So he's the adapted child. But this is complete is the child ego state. And the third one is the adult ego state. Now, adult ego, this starts to process the data from the parents right from the beginning. It tests against the reality to make decisions, which means whatever the parents are doing, he compares it with what is good and what is bad, and then makes a decision. Here, the adult ego also relates to very objective information. It gathers data. Like whenever we have to go, let's say go for a trip abroad to Singapore, you start to gather information, you start to make a plan, you collect all the data, then you make a plan. So this is where your adult ego state is working. And you go into problem solving as a senior in a house or an elderly person. There's a problem in the house. You are generally there to give a rational decision and try to solve their problems. And these decisions are made autonomously, means independently, and keeps all the facts into mind. They may not be right decisions, but all the same, they are made decisions to the best of his ability. And all these three egos states are not mutually exclusive. With this, what I mean is, that it is not necessary that when you are in a situation, you have one particular ego at work at that particular time. It could be overlapping, it could be changing. Like, let's say you're the boss in an office and you find one of his subordinates who requires to be dressed down. So you call him and you start to scold him and admonish him. While you're doing this, your own boss calls you on your phone. You pick up the phone and you straightway start to smile. You straightway start to be a very nice subordinate, cajoling, and so you immediately from a very harsh boss to a very submissive subordinate, you change very quickly. So therefore, the ego states in what you are functioning can be quickly changed and based on the situation. Now, There are typical behaviors of, I won't go into all of them. You could read all these. That in the parent ego, you are advising, criticizing, ordering, telling, fault finding, and a whole lot of loving, caring. In the adult, what you're doing is fact finding, questioning, analyzing, problem solving. So you can realize when you are into any one of these that which ego are you generally operating from. And when you're a child, you're crying, laughing, sulking, playing, enjoying, dancing, and all that. So this is, in nutshell, what we and there's something called stroking, which I will cover a little later. But before that, I want to explain to you the life positions. This is also a very important part of communication, life positions. Now, life positions is when you're a small child, he uses his diaper, he wets his diaper, he feels uncomfortable. He's not able to change that himself. He feels uncomfortable, but he's not able to help himself. So he starts to feel that I am not okay. And when the elders, his parents, somebody changes his diapers, he starts to support him, starts to care for him. That same child thinks that the other person, he is okay, that you are okay, I am not okay. So therefore, as you grow up in life, these experiences tend to put you in certain blocks. And there are various combinations like I am not okay, you are okay. One that we discussed as a small child. The next one is I am not okay, you are also not okay. So this is both are negative. Here, I am okay, you are not okay, and I am okay, you are okay. Obviously, the last one is the most desirable one, which means that that person is self-confident and he finds the environment very supportive. He finds everything happy and wants to contribute. Now, just putting all this on a scale where here it is like self okay and self not okay, others okay and others not okay. Now, somebody who's self okay and others okay is here. Here, the relationship, the communication, everything would be the best because he feels that I am okay, the others are also absolutely okay. And if you go into the opposite of this, where self is not okay, others are not okay. Here, the person is totally indecisive. He doesn't know what is correct for him, and he tends to, block himself, defensive, and becomes a social dropout. In this case, where self is okay, others not okay, you become authoritarian. You somebody who's very overconfident, and therefore sometimes in the extreme, some of these people are also murderers and killers, where he feels that I am absolutely right and the other person doesn't deserve to be in this world. So he reaches that stage. But that's the extreme. And if you take the opposite of this one, here it is totally underconfident and the suicidal tendencies come out here. When he feels that everyone else is very fine, I am not okay, I don't know what is wrong with me. And I don't think so. I deserve to be in this world because I can't compete with them. I can't match them. So I need to finish myself. And in the extreme cases, these guys commit suicides. Here I come to those that part of cooking. No, stroking is something, stroking is touching, basically. Or you give a pat to somebody and he feels that he has been rewarded. And this touch is one of the most important rewards that you can give to a person. While, coronavirus, we are not allowed to do all that. But hopefully, after we get over this coronavirus, we'll again start to uh, give a pat or, shake hands with him or touch him with a warmth to say, well done, you are doing well. And these are the positive strokes. But there are negative strokes, which are when you criticize somebody, when you scold somebody, you punish somebody. Those are the negative strokes. And there are some conditional strokes, which you are giving him a negative stroke, but you outwardly say that you are trying to give a positive stroke. So it's got a ulterior motive behind it. So you give a stroke for what he does rather than what he actually is. So those are conditional strokes. And this stroking is very important for children, because people who, or the kids who do not get stroking or who don't get these touches by the elders and parents, some of them become mentally retarded. They become very skinny kids and they become underconfident kids. So stroking in life is very important, not only for kids, but right through your lives. You even go and give a stroke, positive stroke to an elderly person. He'll feel very nice about it. He'll feel very happy about it. Now, we talked about transactions in the passing, but basically it is when two persons meet, they provide stimulus and receive positive response, and which includes thoughts, feelings, and feedbacks. Uh, there are three different types of transactions: interpersonal transactions. Right? First is the complementary transactions. Then is the crossed, and then there's the ulterior transactions. Now, what is complementary? Complementary is when this P is parent, ego state, adult, and child all along. So when a parent ego state communicates with somebody's child ego state, and that fellow replies back from his child ego state to parent ego state. We'll just take on one example each in this. So this is complementary. Both are complementing one. Similarly here, adult to adult and back from adult to adult. Here, there are no, this is as per the expected norms or responses, and there will be no conflict between the two. These are crossed. Here, parent is addressing his child ego, but the reply comes back from a parent to his child ego. Obviously, there will be a problem. There will be a conflict here, and you will hurt one another's feeling. And similarly, here, he is from the adult to adult, he's addressing him, but the reply comes back from a parent to his child ego. And the third one is the ulterior. Ulterior is like it's got a hidden message. जो आप बोलते कुछ और है, मतलब कुछ उसका और है. So here he's posing himself to be from a parent to a child. I stand corrected. From here he's from adult to adult. But actually he's giving a message from a parent to his child. And this person is also actually saying that he's responding this way, but actually he's responding this way. So there will be a problem here in these communications. Now let's take an example of a complementary transaction. Now X, the first conversation is, he says from the adult ego, he says, have you finished your job? As an adult, he asks the other adult ego, that have you finished your job? He replies, no, sir, there is little bit left. So it's a matured adult to adult conversation. And then he changes from this ego state of adult to a parent, and he addresses his child. He says, no excuses, get the job done quickly, which means he's what? Being little authoritative, like a teacher, and he's addressing a child. And that child replies back to say that I feel like throwing, here the child replies, yes, sir, and the conversation closes here. And in the third one, he says, the child says that I feel like throwing the files out of the window. And he's addressing an adult, and the adult says, okay, take a deep breath and relax. Weekend is around, so cheer up. So he is put in at ease. So there is no conflict here in any of these. Are very simple transactions that I've told you, just to make the point little more clarified. Now here is the complex one, the crossed transactions. Here he says, pardon me. The adult asks the adult here, what is the time? But this fellow is no good mood. He says, you better buy a good watch for yourself. So he is being a child, being childish, and he's addressing his the parent ego of the other fellow. And the worst could have been if the first one was the wife, she had asked the husband, what is the time? And the husband would have replied is, your parents never gave me a good watch in the age. So there would have been conflict. Obviously, there would have been conflict. And here he says, you behaved terribly today. So a parent is addressing a child. And he should have replied from a child to the parent, but he doesn't. He replies from a parent. He says, you weren't any better. So there would be a problem here. And the third one is that the child says to his child that I will go and play cricket. And he should have said, okay, that's a good choice. Let's both go. But he said, from his parent ego says, can you ever be serious about your studies? Sit down, go and study. So that would have been, the child would have felt absolutely bad about it. And this is the ulterior transaction. Now, here he is posing to be saying this communication from an adult to adult. But actually, he is not. He says, you can do this task well if properly supervised. So if properly supervised has been added to the first part of the sentence. Now, if this is the first part, it was a good statement from adult to adult. But he made it conditional. So he actually was here. He was actually trying to say that he's here, but he was from a parent to child. And therefore, if there is more than one ego state which is involved, the situation becomes very complex. A very interesting transaction A letter from a teacher to the parent. He says, dear parent, Tamur doesn't smell nice in the class. This name has no relationship with any living or dead. If it is purely a coincidence. Tamur doesn't smell nice in the class. Please try to bathe him every day. And you know what the reply was? He said, dear teacher, Tamur is not a rose. Don't smell him, teach him. Obviously, there will be a conflict here. Because this is totally, and yet another one. Just to brighten all of you up, husband and wife getting ready for a party. And husband says, darling, where are my cufflinks? The wife replies, how should I know? Must be where you left them. So husband, little irritated, he says, trouble in this house is that you can never find anything where it should be. So wife further says, as if in your mother's house, everything is always where it should be. And now see how the conversation is proceeding further. And then the husband takes little offense to that and says, why talk about my mother? I know the kind of upbringing you've had in your house. This further complicates the issue. And then the wife replies, oh, you dare talk about my upbringing as if I don't know about about your family background. Now this can go on and spiral into very, very different things. And I'm sure quite of you must be quite familiar with this kind of conversations in various places. And you've seen how easily the emotions have gradually intensified from a purely an issue or a non-issue of cufflinks to housekeeping to upbringing, and thereafter, I don't know where it ended ultimately. Such kinds of responses are called spirals. And these spirals can be progressive, which can be positive. Sometimes from one communication you take on, you say you're doing well. He says, even you are, I got the guidance from you. And he says, no, you've done it all by yourself. So this can spiral into a positive and progressive way, whereas it can spiral into a regressive or a negative way, the way that the examples that I've given you here. I will just take 5 more minutes and run through the Pareto's principle. I think I started at about 11:20, so I should be finished in the next 5 to 7 minutes. Quickly run through the others, and then we'll take on questions for next 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever the host plans. Pareto's principle also works on your environment, your communication, the way your relationships happen. Why? First, let's understand what is Pareto's principle. It's also called the 80-20 rule. That most of the events, roughly about 80% effects come from 20% of the causes. And this applied to various other fields. In the management, they say that 80% of business comes from 20% clients. And 20% of hazards account for 80% of injuries. And 20% of patients have been found to use 80% of the healthcare resources. As far as the crimes are concerned, the study has found that 80% of crimes are committed by just 20% of the crimes. And this is quite interesting that the world's riches are divided between the top 20. They control almost 83% of the world's income. So this is the 80-20 law. And we also say that, we devote 80% of our time on 20% of the issues. And those issues are not, those 20 are not important. Important are generally out of the 100%, 80% are important and 20% are unimportant. But we apply ourselves to the 20% and not the 80%. 80%, 80-20 rule also applies to your success in managing people. And 20% only relates to your personal job being done well when you have a number of people under you working. If this analogy is appropriate, then what is the level of okayness with your subordinates? We talked about I am okay, you are not okay. So okayness with your subordinates, peers and supervisors and also your clients is also as important. And you therefore must conduct a test. I will give you a small example here that if you take just 10 people, one is your boss, four are your peers, and five are your subordinates, and see how I see them and how they see me. And this is the kind of graphic that you can come about. That let's say out of the four peers, uh, how they see me, they say that three think I am okay and one think I am not okay. And how they see me, I mean, you can put this into your matrix and see how I see them and how they see me. Here is that I see three of them okay and one not okay. I see three of them okay and one not okay, and they see three of them see that I am okay and one see, and similarly the others. So therefore, this 80-20 rule is a very important rule in your working environment, and you can't have 80% being okay in your job, but you can be somewhere in between 20 and 80, and closer to the 80 would be preferable. To understand why some of your relationship works and others don't, you need to assess your own behavior and that of the others. And for this one, for this, you need to work out as to which mode are you most of the time in, parent, adult, or child. Which mode are subordinates and peers, and which mode is your boss in most of the time. So you should need to work out this. Sorry. I try to keep myself in the adult mode most of the time, but it's not possible. I mean, you tend to get into your child or parent mode, but you should know when you have switched on so that you can come back, and whatever that you stay in, that is what the results you will get in communication. And this is my last slide, is that how you can improve your working in your working places. Cooperation cannot be forced. So your cooperation is obtained. It is, you can't demand it. Cooperation will come naturally if you go. You communicate more through your actions than your words. Sentiments and emotion count. Everyone likes to feel important. And everyone wants to know what is the significance of the job for their job satisfaction. Don't forget to show appreciation for a job well done. And learn to listen to people. And there is active listening is what you should be practicing. Be sincerely interested in your employees and their welfare. This is what these are some of the guides that will help you in your working environment. I finished, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer those.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful discourse, wonderful session. The house is now open for questions. You may unmute yourself, or you have a choice of writing your question in the chat box. So can you please stop sharing your slides so that we can see everybody? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, sir. You may switch on your cameras also. All those who are here, you can ask your questions. There is one question from the chat box, sir. It is asked by Dr. Onima Reddy. She is saying that, sir, it's very difficult for the young generation to keep their self, to be more determined towards one goal. I mean, they are distracted. Or they're supposed to apply their talent in multiple ways to be, to follow, to be more determined towards one goal. How to make them focus towards one goal? This is what she's asking.
I've done a study on which is called balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard. This is basically you make a strategy map for yourself. In this, what you have to do is to select about 5 goals for yourself. Don't select too many goals. Select 5 goals for yourself. It could be your if you are in an organization, or if you're talking for your personal self. Say, I for myself that I have to improve my professional self. I have to improve my financial administration. I have to take care of my physical health. And likewise, you choose 5 different goals. Then subdivide them into smaller pieces. Let us say I say physical fitness. Then I say in my physical fitness, what do I need to do? I will go for a walk this much. I want to achieve reduce my weight so much and be able to walk or run so many kilometers. So how do I do that? So therefore, you have to break each goal into smaller. Give yourself timelines. Once you give yourself timelines in each of the sub goals, then you can decide for yourself that in a week I am going to devote so much time to this goal or so much of time to this goal. Then what you're doing is you're devoting your time. You've already identified where you want to reach, and you have identified your sub goal. One big goal is very difficult to achieve. But if you divide them into smaller sub goals, then you are comprehensively, you can ultimately reach that particular goal. So that's how you can focus, like a physical fitness only. Physical fitness may, let's say I say I want to run 10 kilometers, I want to run marathon. So how do I run marathon? To be able to run that marathon, I need to start doing this. For this, I will give myself 2 days or 5 days, 1 week or 10 days. Each day I will devote so much of time for it. And this, when is the time available to me? In the morning, I get ready, and then you say, okay, I have time in the evening between 4 and 5 o'clock or 5 and 6. I will give time for this part. And therefore, that's how you can focus on your goals. You have to break them up into smaller sub goals, give them time, give them resources in terms of, give them time means a timeline. When do you want to reach there? And give it a resource to say, when can I do that? And then you focus on that way. Otherwise, focusing on one particular goal, it becomes a very huge area for you to focus on.
Great. Thank you, sir. Another question in the chat box is that gossiping is a challenge for many fields. And because of gossiping, misunderstanding develops. So, how to overcome that? This question is by Pallavi Sharma.
Uh, I am a firm believer that gossiping is done by people who lack self confidence in their personal self and their professional competence. People who are confident of themselves, those who are professionally very competent, you will never find them into gossiping. I mean, you can take all the examples. So, uh, focus on building your personal capabilities. And this gossiping will go away automatically because, firstly, to build up that thing, you won't have time. And you only have time gossiping, you sit down together. If I say, like, if I relate the first question with this one, if I've already divided my time in the day to doing various for achieving my goals, I will have very little time left for gossiping. So if you want to build yourself up, if you want to gossip, you will only gossip. You can never build yourself as a professional. If you want to build yourself as a professional, then you have to allot yourself time slots for various functions in a day, and not let it be free as it flows. But देख लेंगे अगर होगा तो कर लेंगे. Then you have free time. Don't have this free time, even if you were not doing anything. But that anything should be to your resting, to your sleeping, to your family time, to your doing your household chores. But that time is not for doing nothing and gossiping. Nothing can also be just closing your eyes and meditating. But that nothing is not nothing. That is focused towards an area. So have a focus on your goals or sub goals rather than having nothing to do. And when you have nothing to do, then you start to gossip. I mean, that's the way that I feel.
Great, sir. Another question from Mr. Gul Muhammad is, what is the existence of ego or super ego in sports?
Dr. Vikram, I couldn't get, there's a echo coming. I couldn't understand the question.
Yeah, can you hear me, sir? Hello.
Yeah, now it is better, yes.
This is a question from Mr. Gul Muhammad. He is asking, what is the existence of ego or super ego in sports?
Existence of ego and superego?
Yeah, in sports.
Superego what?
He's asking, what is the existence of ego or superego in sports? Ego or superego?
In sports, really speaking, when it's when you're playing let's say you're playing a team game. When you're playing like a matured, a seasoned player, you're operating from an adult ego state. And when you start to find faults with the system, start to find fault with the players around, or start to find that things are not very good, then you are operating in a parent ego. And when you start to fool around in the sports, then you are operating in a child ego state. And super ego, there's nothing called the super ego. Any of these egos which are dominant, you would find in every player that there are some players who would just come, play, do their workouts, and go back. There are some people who want to improve things there, also in addition to doing their work. And there are some people who will just come, waste time, play around, laugh around, and go. So you can find out which person is operating from which ego when you compare the kind of work ethos that he has in that uh, particular field. I can't see myself now. It is the entire thing is gone. Video is gone.
Can you
Sir,
hear us? Can you hear us, sir?
I can hear you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, ठीक है. Yeah, I can
Any
hear you.
other question? You can unmute yourself. Kindly switch on your cameras. You can ask directly.
And have I answered? If somebody wants to further clarify, Gul Mohammed,
गुल
I can
मोहम्मद
see.
जी, अगर कोई और प्रश्न पूछना चाह रहे हैं, गुल मोहम्मद जी. Okay, he's got it, sir. The last question, if anybody else wants to ask. I hope you are okay with one more question, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
There don't seem to be any more questions, I suppose. So now I invite my contemporary, Dr. Vikram Singh from Banaras University, Varanasi, to kindly give a vote of thanks.
okay, thank you, Dr. Vikram Singh, sir. At last, I am really and sincerely from the core of my heart, I extend my sincere thanks to Major General Sarbjit Singh Pawar, sir, who have been retired from Indian Army, particularly from the Jat Regiment, with Visis Seva Medal in 2010. And he has also acted as a former Vice Chancellor of our Makkah Madina, that is known as Lakshmibai National Institute of Physical Education and Sports, situated at Gwalior. And friends, sir have done wonderful job for the upliftment of physical education and sports in the current scenario of our country. So I am sincerely thanking him because after having too much busy schedule, he have given his precious time to our society participants so that they can be enriched with a very emerging topic which is entitled as communication and transaction analysis in this virus period. Even during the hard period in army, we can say the war period, or sometimes it is they are in the peaceful away from the battle. Communication is always important, and we have to keep on analyzing in view of transaction. Sir have explained and touched each finer point of communication, like what are the ways of communication. He also highlight the Johari window concept, which we have gone through our management, business management degree. Even I have done also in human resource management from IGNU. Sir have encouraged our participants in a very simplest and better way. So I am really thankful to you, sir, for giving your precious lecture to our participants. In the queue, I am also expressing my sincere thanks to the whole organizing team, including pattern, Dr. E.K. Dabas from Gwalior. Right now, he was not able to join us today. Sincere thanks goes to Dr. Vikram Singh from JNU, New Delhi, because due to heavy rain, and the connectivity of mine network is not very good. We have suddenly switched over to, like, we have some backup plan, and Dr. Vikram Singh from Delhi have knows the meeting alternatively. So I am sincerely thanking to him also. Sincere thanks also goes to Dr. T. Onima Reddy for always being with me and helping me throughout. And at last, I am sincerely thanking all the participants to have with us, bear with us. Sincere thanks goes to each and every one. At last, I would like to say thanks also goes to media personnel for covering such a for covering the events in such a nice and wonderful way. And at last, I should say thank you and convey my regards to Lord Shiva also, under his under his lab we are sitting and doing this good kind of work. And also sincere thank goes to Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya ji. In his citadel I am sitting and providing my job to the society. So at last, sincerely thank goes to each and everyone who are associated with us, and especially to once again Major General Sarbjit Singh Pawar sir for uh, for joining us as a pattern of this society and bearing the torch of this society. So at last, once again, I am sincerely thanking you, sir, for your uh, lecture as well as for joining us. Thank you very much, sir. Now hand over to Dr. Vikram Singh sir for further action.
Thank you.
Vikram sir, please kindly unmute yourself. You are not audible. Please
Okay.
unmute yourself.
Thank you very much to everybody for sparing your valuable time, and we'll be sending you the feedback and other details very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.